Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. I'm here with Robby Caban from Atlanta, Georgia. Robby has been with us several times. She is one of those journalists, reporters, real estate. I think she codes herself as, what is that hashtag you use?
Not your average agent.
Not your average agent. Welcome aboard Politics Done Right. Robby, how are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for asking, Alberto. I'm blessed and highly favored.
Well, you know, it's amazing because we are in a pandemic that's gonna start a a strong economic downturn, likely a depression. But this was something that was coming on along, and I think you probably know about it. But before we get into the pandemic, the downturn, the stimulus, and all of that, there's an article that you sent me this morning, and ironically, a supporter of mine sent it to me and said, Egberto, you need to cover this on the show. It's about Hertz. And this morning when I woke up, when I asked you to be on the show, and I woke up and I saw that you presented with the same article, I'm like, my God, you know, poetic justice. Anyhow, tell us a little bit about the Hertz deal.
Well, probably like myself and everybody really, and if they're not, they should be. The only people who would be happy with that article are other CEOs and corporate billionaires, Bezos, etc. We're seeing repetitively that they are coming out of this problem, this major problem for our economy, for our workers, for employees, for small businesses. Not only well, but in the green, creating wealth off of all these problems that are happening in our economy. And Hertz, sadly, she's a female CEO, and as a woman, I'm like, but it goes to show you that this crosses all lines, regardless of gender, race, socioeconomic. And she's walking away with over $9 million in compensation in a package, because this is contractual, right? And while her employees, the company has been losing money for years, they've been at a deficit, and they are laying off people, and people are losing their jobs. And so you have to wonder, as the leader of that company, how she can feel okay with taking over $9 million when the people that she was supposed to lead, her employees, right, and this corporation to raise profits, to take care of their shareholders and take care of their employees, are walking away with losses.
You know what is so interesting, Robby? It turns out I talk a whole lot about corporate greed and these executives making so much more money than the average worker. And some of my right-wing, very good people, right-wing conservative listeners would say, Egberto, that is wealth envy. I don't care how much money they make, as long as we make enough and have a job. And my contention to them is, by them making that much, they are making that much and not worth it. I mean, if they were worth it, if they were producing something that, I don't think anybody is worth $10 million a year as an employee. I just don't think that's a possibility. But at least if they were given some sort of a positive cash flow and employees with high wages, it would make sense. I can't see any rationale for what executives make right now when all the work is done by the rank and file. Your thoughts on that?
It's a very parasitic, relationship.
We think alike. I wrote an article where I called them
really?
parasites.
No,
Yes.
And it's fascinating because of this situation we're in with this virus. It's really, everything is interconnected, Egberto. It's no accident that someone sent you an article and, we're on the same page. And I use the term that it's synchronicity, really.
Right.
And this, unfortunately, this woman, the CEO, Catherine Marinello, I believe is her name. If you ever have rented a car, I'm sure you have, I have, those people standing in the booths, those people who bring you the keys, they're not making a living wage,
Right.
Oftentimes, just like in any corporate structure, that top echelon is disconnected. It tends to be subcontracted. And, again, we're here at the world's busiest airport. Hertz was there. I've rented from them. this is just another example of why contracts and labor matters so much, because this woman, the CEO, walking away with over 9 million while her company's failing and her employees are losing their jobs, it had a contract. She had something in writing where she was promised and they cannot get out of it. And so that is the power of labor. That is the power of representation. And, you know, unfortunately, in Georgia, we're a right to work state. So our labor unions have been crushed. They're a facade of what they used to be, you know, and we are still fighting that battle. You know, people like you, independent media, the HIC will not touch what you covered with Yvette Avery, the whistleblower out of the airport. You know, this is a very similar situation. You know, everything is modified with marketing and the media, the spin. You see some media outlets, they're not even media, they're not journalists, they're propaganda. Mm-hmm. You know, they're almost like paid consultants to spin a story. We're going to fly safe. We're going to take 6 months of a salary off of the CEO. When you see people being furloughed, you see people asked to take leaves voluntarily so that they don't have to get unemployment, or so that we can pay the unemployment instead of the company having to pay them.
Exactly.
You see these hierarchies in these companies, and the spin on it is, I mean, it's so difficult just to understand what's actually happening. And so I'm so grateful you're going to cover this today. Go ahead.
Yeah. I like that you brought up Avery, and because the truth of the matter is we have to have her on again, because I know that she's done quite a bit, much more. She's a union activist and trying to unionize. I think it's Delta, correct?
Yeah, Delta's our world's busiest airline, and
right.
We're in the backyard of Hartsfield-Jackson International, which was the world's busiest airport. And ironically, Georgia's largest employer.
Right.
60,000 employees.
It's amazing. Now, I like something that's coming out of some of our intelligentsia, if you will, like Robert Reich. Robert Reich, former labor secretary for Clinton, he stated that after this coronavirus has been mitigated, when we get it stabilized, that what we have to arrange for getting wages where it needs to be, getting unionization, etc., is that we need to start talking about a national strike. And I'll tell you something, I will be absolutely on board in doing my part in my little section of independent media to start educating us all, enlightening us all, getting educated myself as to why we need a national strike, so that we as the masses, we as the people that are below the 1% executive class, we are the ones really empowered.
I love that idea. Things are coming to a head. You know, we're getting to the point where we're willing to lose it all. Yes. You know, and I think this Trump-Biden thing has really presented, you know, we have two white men who've been in politics, you know, especially Biden. He's a legacy politician. Right. He's been in politics almost his whole career. And they both have accusations against them that sound horrible. You know, and the one guy, Bernie, you know, who was white too, who didn't have accusations, who had a consistent record of what he did, who didn't waver, who didn't even, the Democratic Party. So now people are like, this is who we're gonna choose from. Well, let it burn, the way people say. Actually, let it burn.
You know, I have been trying to tell a whole lot of my Democratic cohorts that they need to start seeing the light, because when people stop having anything to lose, they have nothing to lose. And that is exactly, you know, I mean, when you ask the Bernie supporters or those or real progressives to support a ticket, you've been asking them that for years. And really what you're doing is you're asking them that for those of you in the middle, those of you that have a little more than the rest. But you're constantly not doing those on the very left any favors. You're constantly not giving them. So one of these days, these guys on the left are going to say exactly what you just said. Let the whole thing burn. I am not there yet. I don't want to have the whole thing burn yet, but because I'm like, should we give them one more chance? Should we give them one more chance? Let me ask you, should we give them one more chance?
I think that depends on them. It's really interesting. I negotiate for a living, and I'll
Right.
tell you that the person who's not willing to walk always has the most to lose.
Yes.
If in essence, the person who's not willing to let it all fall,
Right.
is us, because it's a power struggle.
Right.
This is to some degree a power struggle. And in the best negotiations, everyone wins. And that is really the problem with not having representation, not having organized labor, not being unified. The information gets disseminated. We don't get real information. You can't make a real decision, a quality one, without real information. That's why media, not propaganda, but true independent media. And if you are not independent, you're bound.
That's why I love what you do. I mean, everybody was singing the praises of what's his name, the new studio in Atlanta.
TPS, Tyler Perry.
Tyler Perry. And here it is, you come on Politics Done Right and did a report to show what's happening behind the gate. So that is so true. That is so true.
I'm with you, but really what I think we're missing in sometimes in politics is the emotional components of people.
Explain.
Well, for example, when we covered Tyler Perry Studios, which was very obvious, there were people who normally would have been allies with me who were angry. They felt like I was attacking Tyler Perry personally. And actually people referenced online, this Latina woman is attacking a Black man, and oftentimes people look at the race component, but they don't look at the structural component or the emotional. If you look at the reactions people are having to Biden, right? Biden missed the boat on an emotional component. And he doesn't understand the structure. His viewpoint seems to be, by his behavior, is I was with Obama and I'm not Trump. Well, that's not campaign slope. That's not a campaign. But ironically, he's very limited in the sense that if he says what people want, like on the interview with Charlemagne, reparations, because that's action. It's a monetary unit. What people want. It's not rhetoric. He then hurts himself, as at least he feels, with the people who don't understand history, who don't understand reparations are necessary, because they would have an emotional component, angry, like, well, why are these Black people getting that? They already got affirmative action. What about me living in squalor in rural Georgia with subsidies, farms, jobs, Medicare, a disaster? You're selling me out for them. Totally emotional.
Right. Exactly. I see your point. And I think all of that comes because of a lacking in the media, a lacking of education, where people, first of all, they don't show the disassociation of these particular items. So I gather you're right. Now, when it comes to when you talk about how people refer to you, when you took care of the Tyler Perry Studios, I don't know if you remember, I recall that I said stay engaged, because the truth of the matter is we have to stop allowing people of whatever race. You'd have a Latino going to a Latino district and run as a Latino because he's a Latino and he thinks he owns the Latino vote. A Black person goes into a Black district and asks for their vote because they're Black. But the thing about it is, what did they actually perform in that district to bring what that district needs? A lot of times they are a Black politician or a Latino politician or an Asian politician in name only, but they're just a function of the plutocracy that's saying, I am going to be a face to do your bad deeds in my own community. And to put it bluntly, what I'm saying is a lot of Blacks and Latinos in Congress are nothing more than sellouts to the establishment. And one of the reasons I liked what you did, I think it's important because, and by the way, you are going to take Spears, as a Latina, que no es una Latina super negra o algo así, you are going to take Spears, but that's why you're an activist.
Yeah, and honestly, it really doesn't matter,
Right.
I did it specifically because Atlanta we are really an interesting place. We're in the middle of the country. We're still transitioning. We're still growing as a city. The East Coast and the West Coast, now they're going to modify, but they have density. They've gentrified. You know, they're not affordable anymore. That's why people are coming here. And we have an opportunity in Atlanta, especially with the power structure in the city of Atlanta. You know, our mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, is a Black woman. Our governor, Kemp, is a Caucasian white man. And that power structure regarding city and our busiest airport, this major asset in Atlanta and Georgia in the middle of the country, still emerging, it's a real opportunity on how we're going to maybe make things more equitable, ensure protections for regular people, having a living wage, starting with housing, ensuring that we talk about the homeless a lot, but really the homeless are a component of the lack of affordable housing, the lack of inventory, the lack of structure in real estate, or oversight. And now with the virus, because we've never taken care of that, we have our homeless who can be carriers who can really kill us all.
Right.
And we can't put them in hospitals because they'll affect the hospitals. We can't leave them on the street. We have our homeless people in Atlanta sleeping on federally funded green space called the Atlanta Beltline, which is, they are. They're images of them sleeping because of our affordability issue, because we haven't solved the real estate crisis, which we're going to talk about, and it all ties together. And our city of Atlanta elected officials, the city council, just in the last 30 days, approved funding, our taxpayer funding, for the acquisition of more green space. 300 acres on the southeast side. And what green space does is attract people to areas because they can utilize the parks. So in essence, they are furthering the gentrification with our tax dollars, furthering the displacement, the gentrification, the replacement of lower income residents with higher income residents, putting them farther south, exactly who are not equipped, where COVID, Albany, where we don't have hospital funding, where the outbreaks are, they're putting them farther south. So who's gonna pay for all that?
Ultimately, we are.
Aren't, right? They're walking away with their packages, to your credit. The elected officials in the Senate, they just went on holiday for Memorial Day. They're all.
Let's migrate that then into our other topic, talking about, first of all, I think I asked you to sort of reference 2008, what happened with real estate in 2008, and based on what we know happened there, how the stimulus package of 2020 will do probably the same kind of bad, if not worse, in these markets.
Well, if we don't restructure, right? So if we just do the same thing we always do, throw money at a problem and not ensure that the same causes that were in those industries or systems are corrected, we will repeat. That's a surety. Because if we don't change right internally where it really matters, we just do these these kind of facade changes to make everyone feel better, it will repeat. And it's not just 2008. I actually pulled up a tax record, and just to make clear, certain areas get hit harder, just like more vulnerable communities get worse consequences because they have less resources. So this is an example of a tax record on the south side of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And you referenced 2008, and it shows like basically multiple bubbles, and we're heading that way again. And the reason is because we're inflating the value of homes in the sense that the federal government is backing securities, buying acquisitions, backing housing really, and producing more paper. So in essence, a contract, if it's not signed, is not worth anything, right? Just a piece of paper. A marriage contract, if it's not respected, is trash. Right. And the same, our money works like that. If we just keep producing more money, if the federal government keeps printing paper and we don't have the resources, the true resources to put value in that paper, the paper's not worth anything.
Exactly.
So what people are doing now, people with, they're buying gold because it used to be oil, right? So, but oil's now not worth what it once was. Right. And there's a whole slew behind, story behind that. So these people, you know, are capitalizing, ready to, you know, the way they sold their stocks off, including our senators. So where does that leave us, the 90% and down? And if you look at this tax record, it shows in 2004, this is the same house, just so you know, the same house is being sold, and it was sold for $139. A year later, it got sold for over $300,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what year was that?
Well, this was 2004, 2005. So this is the previous bubble before the 2008 crash.
Okay, got you.
This is where you see the inflation.
Right.
So someone took this house, put, you know, pretty countertops painted, you know, probably didn't change out the systems of the house, the internal, the costly, the plumbing, the HVAC, the roof. A roof on a house will cost you $5,000 to $10,000, depending on the electric inside, $4,000. Plumbing, you know, the whole the inside the walls, right? The structure of the house, what makes everything work, not just making it pretty, not a facade. Well, if you look at the same record in 2000, you're going to see the power of deed. That person got foreclosed on. More than likely, this person bought a house that wasn't renovated well. It was inflated. And they said, you know what? The plumbing in this house sucks. My lights are, I got a roof leak. My foundation's not good. They didn't put my foundation in well. My crawl space. Screw it. I'm not paying this anymore. My notes, 2,000.
2,000. Right.
Right. But see, the city doesn't mind this. And I'm going to send you, because when the houses go up to this value, it's more revenue.
More taxes. Yeah.
Correct. So that's the reason that we don't mind, you know, sending people south, because these people, new people with more money, buy these houses. That's
increase the tax base. Yeah.
Correct. So now they have more money to raise their salaries because they vote their own salaries, which I don't know how that happens, but imagínate if I could do that, if I could have an agreement and raise my own salary whenever I felt like it.
Right.
So then we look at, now it's sold again for $155, right? What that means is that the house fell apart because it's never really worth that, right? Based on these marketing, you know, the green space that came, but the real value of the house is the real value. Well, then someone else bought it in 2006, and again it was sold for $300,018. Otro bendito sucker, right? These are not my clients. I tell you that my clients don't get into these houses because I know this. Well, after that, you'll see again in 2009, 2007. To your credit, that's when the major bubble happened. And what happened in 2009? Citibank liquidated it for $266,000, right? So you have 150 or take 300. A few years later, 150 or so, over 300, right? But these people keep losing. Who are these people? The little people. Now,
exactly.
And then you see again in 2009, the bubble, and LLC comes in, kind of like our millionaires and our senators liquidating. And what are they buying for? $38,000.
You're kidding me.
Oh, so you see why they don't care about these cycles? Because these assets, they're gonna get it for below what it's worth.
Right.
So now they're gonna take this, throw in a good renovation, right? And when it comes up again, or when we're inflating prices, then they're going to liquidate it, and they're going to go with their money the same way that Catherine Marinello.
Yes.
Walking away with her $9 million despite everything falling apart.
The house is the tool that they can continue to make money, that the big shots can continue to make money because it's not regulated in such a manner other than for them to be allowed to do that.
Well, we've commoditized single-family residential, and to houses, single-family residential houses, and we've allowed it to become a complete business for brokerages, you know, for brokers, for wholesalers, people selling off market. And this is the internal components of the real estate market that we were trying to bring to our mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, to tell her, look, do you see these structures? Do you see why this is problematic? The main reason affordable housing is so difficult to create is because of the construction costs. Well, all we have to do in 2008, the last bubble, HUD liquidated the housing urban development, right? Who have a ton of houses because they're backed. We back those federal loans. So when somebody gets foreclosed on and it was a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan, those houses go back to HUD. And then HUD was supposed to liquidate them to the public. Well, in 2008, HUD liquidated the inventory to investors.
That is where we need to come in now with the stimulus and stimulus v 2008, stimulus v 2020. Are there any differences from what you've seen with how that's going to be handled when people start foreclosing again?
Right now I don't. If you notice, and I hope that changes. If you notice, Zillow, Redfin, Compass, all of these major brokerages announced we're not buying assets anymore when COVID was at a height. Well, all of these recent articles, and I'll send them to you, say we're buying assets again. So what that's very problematic, and the reason is because you have people who are supposed to be representing the public, right? Public interest or clients, meaning the structure of our real estate system and the players in the real estate system, have conflicting interests. And when you don't regulate that, right? So now, if Redfin says, I'll buy your house, and you let them list it, now they have all the control, just like media. Are there good photos? Do they answer the phone when people want to see it? And when they turn to you in 60 days and say, we couldn't sell your house, but the photos are crap, they weren't answering the appointments, and we'll buy it, what are they buying it for? The value.
Right.
You have all the control in the power of, it's an inequitable structure. And so when we allow inventory to be gobbled up in these other layers that are kind of hidden in the industry that don't come to light, Atlanta, our mayor, can have slogans till the cows come home. One Atlanta, Atlanta strong. These have been hashtags everywhere, and we can have these committees that say we're reviewing how to do things. But if you don't speak to people like Yvette Avery about the airport, who has already been terminated, on how to really restructure and protect workers, protect a living wage, if you don't speak to whistleblowers like me who are already willing, thank God I own my own firm. I've already lost business for this. Now it doesn't matter to me. So I'm willing to say, look, these are the 4 areas that we can modify, with laws, with legislation, with oversight, to create more inventory. Do you know how easy it would be? I'll give you one solution. Nobody's discussing this. If City of Atlanta allowed people, because our land lots in Atlanta are quite large, very similar to Texas, I easily could put a secondary dwelling in my backyard. Meaning I could have a little old person live there, I could live there, a student could live there, a little carriage house. I could rent the front of my house, it would be income producing. What would allow me to do that very easily? I could take out a home equity line of credit and easily build it. But what would incentivize me to do it is if City of Atlanta said, you know what? We will allow tax breaks for anyone who does secondary dwellings. Well, my neighborhood, Capitol View, has 966 households. If Capitol View, 20% of Capitol View, 200 people did that, which would be a benefit, and got a tax break for it, the way that we give solar tax breaks, we would have 200 new dwellings in all of our communities.
More housing, yeah.
What you do is, right now, they've captured the inventory, the brokerages, the brokers who are agent investors, right? Who operate in dual capacity, use the system to benefit personally instead of the people they're intended to serve, the public. And when we allow that to cross such lines, that we have an affordability crisis, we have a displacement issue, we have a gentrification massive, we have a homeless crisis that we're all paying for. We've crossed it.
Now, isn't it true then that given what you're talking about restructuring, that when this depression, if you will, come and the stimulus starts, where they're going to start buying paper and all of that, when it comes to putting those homes back into the market, they could actually have legislation that actually prevents that sort of a hoarding, that sort of a manipulation of the market within the legislation, correct? Am I right?
We could require the first 6 months go to owner occupied. We could do that right now with the foreclosures that are coming on the county courthouse steps in Fulton County. They sell to cash investors. We could say if you get foreclosed on in Fulton County, the person who got foreclosed on, I think you've recommended this, gets this amount, and this has to be sold to an owner occupant. Now that might change the structure, and a lot of people say, well, it'll backlog it a bit. But I really believe that our county courthouse has back-end deals. Like those are
Right.
going to certain people. I've seen
Yes.
that pattern over and over. But that would help with inventory. And unfortunately, I don't see the committees that our mayor has put together, you know, who are advising her. She is largely advised by CEOs. She has put on TI, like he's one of her supporters, and Killer Mike, who are, you know, very bright and clearly from the community. What concerns me is Killer Mike went to Benjamin Mays, which is a very prestigious high school. You know, she is not including people in the field like Marshall Rancifer, the homeless advocate. She will not engage with Yvette Avery, the whistleblower at the airport who got terminated, who can say everything, who can tell her these are the exact jobs. This is why people can't come forward. This is why people won't come forward on safety hazards. This is what happens when you do. The easiest way to solve a problem is to look at the consequences of it and how to avoid it. You know,
backtrack. It's interesting because you're talking about the mayor of Atlanta right now, and that is very disconcerting, you know, because it comes from the same issues with a lot of us activists, why we're concerned with Biden, why you're concerned with the mayor of Atlanta, in that there's a whole lot of pretty talk, but when it comes to the people who need the help the most, we just don't see it. Yes, it's going to do well for some.
Money.
Go ahead.
And it's not that there's not money.
Right.
Really, there is. The question is, where does that money go? So thank you for covering this with Mayor Bottoms. It's fascinating because she was recently, she supported Biden. She endorsed Biden, right? And she's a heavy Democrat. You know, she arose out of the Reid administration. She was a city council person prior, right next to my district. Her district actually covered a portion of Tyler Perry Studios. And she has a track record, and I really wanted to believe in her, you know, especially as a woman of color. I really wanted to think she was sincere, but I'm really doubtful now because of what I've witnessed, you know, as a track record and what I've seen for myself. She fully supports Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry is not hiring outside of Oakland City. That wall is still up. So the very people that it should be benefiting, that military base, the former military base, Fort McPherson, has a mandate in their charter on how that's supposed to be done. It's not being regulated. For other people to benefit there, when we sold that land as a city, you know, or as a state for so low to benefit, and the fact that it's not helping, okay.
The people in the community.
Yeah, Tyler Perry is a mogul now. You know, he's flipping his houses in LA and, you know, has mansions too. And a lot of people were impressed too with the buying of the groceries. Tyler Perry bought groceries from people at Walmart. Well, I get it. People, again, this emotional component, people want to feel good about really themselves. And we see ourselves and who we look like. And so, you know, he's getting a pass to some degree, because if he was not an African-American male and he did acquire that for less than it was worth, meaning which he has, and didn't hire, the same Black people across didn't take down the wall.
Across the fence, right.
Well, people respond. They would respond differently. But for some reason, and if someone went and bought groceries and said, oh, it's almost like a let them eat cake.
Right.
You don't have a job, you don't have housing, but here's your groceries for one day.
Let me tell you why I like your politics, why I like our politics, right? Because we are willing to say the truth in this respect. Capitalism and the plutocracy really knows no color, knows no race. It's all a class thing, and race is always used as sort of a tool to divide, a tool to let people look different ways. In other words, Tyler Perry and his cabal, and I can tell you most of his cabal don't necessarily look like Tyler Perry, okay? Mm-hmm. And it's a good, and we were talking Tyler Perry, I don't want to just throw the blame on Tyler Perry. No, it goes with Oprah, it goes with what's his name that was married to my Latina girl there, that's a big time salsero. All these different people, they use their ethnicity as a benefit. In other words, when people talk a lot about affirmative action, a lot of the people benefiting from affirmative action are people who themselves didn't necessarily need affirmative action, as opposed to those people of lower socioeconomic standing in those communities. But they get it just because of el color de la piel o lo que sea, right? So we have to be able to call those out, whether they be Black, Latino, Asian, or whatever, using the ethnicity to get ahead, when in reality they're doing nothing for those particular select communities.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same situation with Joe Biden. You can't ride on the coattails of Obama. Yeah, if you're action wise. But I do want to mention, to me, the race relations. I look at the criminal justice system as a good example of this. Criminal justice is supposed to be blind, right? Lady Justice has the blinders because she's supposed to be blind. The issue is that who makes that system function? Who are the judges? Who is the jury? Who's the police? Who's the enforcers? You know, who are the gatekeepers? Well, if we gatekeepers, the judges, the lawyers, the DAs, the people influencing the DAs, if we have those prejudices, if we have those, you know, racist beliefs, mindsets, etc., we're the ones executing that in our criminal justice system.
Right.
So we're and it's the same, you know, it's really the same altogether. So if we, again, it's the accountability component, it's the oversight component. And to your question in terms of what do I think is going to happen in the housing market in Atlanta, I don't want to speculate, but I will say this because it's not speculation. If we do not look at our systems, the internal components of our systems, and there's certain critical things that everyone, housing is first. Without housing, without stability in the home, every study says this, the children suffer when they go to school. Housing, where you keep your items. How do you keep a job without a roof over your head? Where do you bathe? Where do you keep your items? If we do not take care of our bases, right, and get into that system and look at the internal components, what is happening? You know, who's taking the inventory? And oftentimes it's very easy to see by who's making the profit. That we can easily get to the
source of the problem
by wherever the money is going.
Follow the money.
Yeah, with this Hertz is a perfect example. Catherine Marinello, 9 million. Where's the money going? Okay, exactly. Well, who did the work? If COVID hasn't shown us anything, who keeps the society going? What is labor worth? What's the problem with labor? We can't defend ourselves. Why? Because we're not represented. We don't have options. With
that, we are on a hard stop, and I think that's the perfect place to end it. COVID-19 proved who we are really dependent upon. Listen, Robby Caban, you are a hell of an activist out there in many other facets, from real estate to unionization to labor. Thank you for all that you do. We need a hell of a lot more like you.
Same. Take care of yourself, Egberto. I know you've been working 16-hour days. Self-care is very important. I'm all peppy because I took a break. These environments can be very toxic. You have to take care of yourself.
I appreciate that. I'll take a break after the elections.
Okay.
Thank you, Robby. I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel, and please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.